podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters.
All right, where did we leave off?
We're going to start
talking about Beautiful and Damned.
Yeah.
You want me to re-question here?
Yeah.
All right. Be a good natural break between one episode and the other episode. So, Kevin, bottles are beautiful. Beautiful and the Damned's a more unique name. How did all of this come about?
The name itself?
The name itself.
Sure.
Why did you decide to go with the bottle art the way you did? What's the story behind that?
How much time we got? So
Make it 3 episodes.
I'm a big fan of American literature. I like to read. Always have since I was young. And one of my favorite authors is a guy by the name of F. Scott Fitzgerald. F. Scott Fitzgerald, I like to say, taught me a lot about my relationship with booze. Really learned a lot from it. He actually has a little book called On Booze with excerpts from his books, related to just booze. But what I loved about him was all of his characters had this brilliant relationship with booze. Had a drink in their hands at all times, made friends, got into fights, fell in love, murdered people. I mean, I could go on and on. And so I knew I wanted to, give a bit there to F. Scott Fitzgerald. And I look at this business as my second novel, right? My first novel, Investment Banker. Mm-hmm. My second novel, Whiskey Business. Sounds like risky business, by the way, which it is
probably accurate.
Make sure if you want to go into this business, you are extraordinarily well capitalized and a little crazy. But F. Scott Fitzgerald's second book was called The Beautiful and Damned. And I hated the thought of everything that was beautiful being damned, so I added a the. And I was able to also trademark it. Mm-hmm. And so The Beautiful and the Damned was born through that. I thought it, looked cool on a label. Had people, think. I didn't have an uncle that was a distiller. I didn't feel like making up a bullshit story that I had a great-grandfather that was a distiller, like others have. I didn't like, the thought of making up a bullshit story about how this brand that was, from Prohibition, made in the basement of a famous doctor. I didn't feel like lying. Right? So I went with The Beautiful and the Damned. And you can tell as well that, we have a bit of an obsession with art in this house, right? And so all the art that you see on here has been commissioned. It's hanging on the walls in this house, except for the Moby Dick, large Moby Dick drawing, which has a backstory that, as we get to know each other better, I'll be able to tell you guys. For now, I can't. But the art of the whiskey label is a beautiful representation of art. Mm-hmm. And everything that I do, each of these has a story behind them. Old Orleans, for example, which is my bestseller now. It's a bourbon whiskey 4.5 to 6 years old. A blend of 4.5 to 6 year old bourbon whiskey. Finished in French Riviera oak, and proofed down to 94 proof. I proof down in a process that drives my people insane. It's 1 proof a day. They think I'm crazy, but it makes a difference.
Talked about that
a lot.
I marry my barrels together for 28 days. They think I'm insane. It makes a difference. I'm not about let's turn this whiskey out and sell it. I want it to be the right version of the whiskey, etc. But Old Orleans is actually the first mention of bourbon in American literature in the book Moby Dick. Herman Melville, 1851. They spear a whale. And there's character in the book that is just one of the best characters ever. He's like a poet, an uneducated but brilliant poet. And he likens the blood pouring from the whale to that of Old Orleans, which was bourbon whiskey. That was the name for bourbon. Bourbon didn't, have its name in the middle of the 1800s. Mm-hmm. And so that's why Old Orleans is there. And that's why you see that amazing drawing that's on the front. If you look at it up close, it's phenomenal.
And also soon you'll be able to see it hanging in Gold Eagle.
Exactly right.
Gifted me a very nice picture of that
That's
label.
exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
So the original was had to pay someone to go in there with a Leica camera to take a picture of the original. And so I have it, a picture of it blown up, etc. And I own, no one else can use that. But again, it's a longer story. And I used that to put it on museum quality paper. And so your Beautiful and the Damned, Old Orleans, picture will last over 100 years, which is very cool. And all of them have stories. The Never Surrender and The Last Line, which are Bourbon's Never Surrender, is a 6 to 7.5, almost 8-year-old bourbon whiskey, proof down to 100. Last Line, of course, won 98 out of 100 points. San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and is a finalist for best small batch bourbon in the world, which is really cool. That one is a bit older, 6.5 to 8.5 years old, and that's at cast strength. But that art is painted by a guy named Jeffrey Watts out of Southern California. He's a really cool artist that is also a teacher, and it's of a lion, and it's a lion that has this fierce look on his face, but he's also scarred. Right? He's been in fights, etc., but he doesn't matter. We've all been scarred. We all have to stand up. We all have to continue to fight, etc. And so I loved that. And then you have Man of Leisure, which won Cumming Whiskey Rye of the Year, and the Diplomat, which is the cast strength version of that. So Man of Leisure, it's so good. 95% rye, 5% malted barley. That artwork was done by a gent named Florian Nicole, just outside of Paris, France, because of course Benjamin Franklin was the diplomat to Paris. The Diplomat, the cast strength version, was given 96 out of 100 points, San Francisco World Spirits Competition, double gold medals, of course, for both. So we're double gold medal winners, best in class finalists, etc., which is very cool. It's nice to get that recognition. All the hard work that you put into things, the slaving away that you have to do and blending. It's not just, let's take all these barrels and throw them together and see what happens.
Yeah.
This very careful curation of barrels that makes a huge difference in things. And so you're going to see the bottle art occur on everything that the Beautiful and the Damned puts out. As well, the designers that we work with, two different designers. The ones for the originals, which was Never Surrender and Man of Leisure, was done by a guy named Aaron Scamahorn, great guy. He and I worked very closely on those together. And then Old Orleans, Last Line, and the Diplomat were put together by a company called United Creatives out of Manchester, United Kingdom. And they're known for things like Grey Whale Gin. Have you guys seen that? The stout, short little blue bottle of gin that looks kind of like a whale. They created the packaging for that. And then they also created packaging for Compass Box Scotch. They've done half of that. The other is Strange and Stranger is the other company that does other Compass Box stuff. So definitely want to make sure that it looks really great on the shelf, compels you to pick it up and say, what the hell is this? Look it up online. Oh, this is award-winning. Buy it, take it home, and then again, the best comment I've ever received was, somehow this tastes better than it looks. That was the coolest comment I've received.
With the bottle art, when you get these artists, do you already have an idea in your head of what you're wanting the final product to look like, and giving them the story for it to match?
Yeah, I'm a creative guy.
Okay.
I have like the math side and the art side working, which is pretty darn cool. Love that. And by the way, these cigars are very cool. I brought 4 of them out. These are Cuban cigars, unbanded, but I've been buying Cuban cigars since I was 21. I have this awesome connection to Habanos dealer in Switzerland, and these are like the farm rolled cigars that they do with Cuban tobacco, and wait till you try them. They're like phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
We'll step in on that.
Don't have
So-
to sell that hard.
Maybe we can dive a little deeper into each of the whiskeys. Old Orleans, let's start with that because we were talking about the label a lot. All of us really, really liked it. You said it's your best seller.
Yeah.
I'm getting like a really creamy, like creme brulee. Not gonna say dulce de leche.
Thank you.
But I think the biggest thing that stood out from this one is it's French oak finished, but the French oak is so subtle compared to other French oaks, and that's what we were kind of talking about before we started recording. It's such a delicate wood to work with, and it can be overdone very, very quickly. What is your experience with French oak, and how did you get this to just be so incredibly balanced?
Yeah. It's all about knowing what you want to do, going into it. And French oak is difficult to work with in that it can get very astringent. It has its thing, right? A lot of wines are aged in French oak, of course. And French oak has a tighter grain. And so you have to be very mindful of how you're, finishing your whiskey in French oak. If you leave it in too long, it is going to turn astringent, and I cannot stand astringency in whiskey. I don't want to have a sip of whiskey and have my mouth be dried out. I want to have a sip of whiskey and I want to salivate and want some more. That's what all of mine, do. Clearly, it's very important. Mouthfeel is important. Lack of astringency is very important. And so, it's very, it's toasted French oak, and every barrel is going to put off something a little different. I love playing around. Part of the blending, it's not on, by the way. You gotta turn it up a little higher.
Sorry.
We're talking about the cigar lighter, by the way. Now it should be on. Let's try it.
Fancy teacup cigar lighter.
Yeah, it's a little, it is fancy.
These are fantastic, by the way.
There you go. Yeah, mild, nice and mild cigar.
Really like deep flavor though.
Yeah, really
It's got the
nice,
same
actually,
dessert
with Old
flavor
Orleans.
as the
Yeah,
Old Orleans
yeah.
that I said earlier.
Yeah, that's Tucker, by the way, my dog.
Jake's dog's usually making the podcast too.
Yeah,
Jake's?
Yours.
Or yours? Oh, yours is always in the podcast, wagging its tail against the ground.
His tail is curled. It doesn't hit the ground.
Something hits the ground. He's scratching something.
Oh, it's scratching.
Scratching.
He's itching, but it's not his tail.
yeah. So toasted as well. You have to be mindful of toasted, right? Now, you also don't want to let people down, right? If I say this is toasted French oak, they're going to expect something. But what I want to do is surprise them a little bit, right? I want to be a little different than other things that are out there on the market. And what I want to make sure comes across in all of my bourbons, and the same thing with my ryes, is the fact that it is a bourbon, right? So how can you, with toasted French oak, maintain that brilliant quality of the bourbon? You have to be very mindful of every single one of your barrels as you're aging it in the toasted French oak. And you can tell as well, when it's going to turn and how quickly it's going to turn. When I say turn, it gets a little too oaky, astringent, etc. And you have to, pull them all at the right time. And so what I like to say about Old Orleans is it's my most affordable expression at $54.99 price point, SRP. That's for the 94 proof. But it's also the biggest pain in the ass because I need to make sure that all of those barrels are being taken out at the right time. And so it's not an easy feat. With the cast strength that you guys are all loving, that's a single barrel 2 of Old Orleans. Let me see what proof this one is at.
113.9.
Yeah, 113.9.
I've had my eye on it.
Really nice proof.
And
Jake's not paying attention and thinking about what Gold Eagle's getting.
yeah, I have 34 cases of that remaining. It's the last of the single barrels of Old Orleans. It's my favorite of the single barrels of Old Orleans. And I will say though, Jake, if you do pinch that off of me, I get to keep bottle number 1.
I say Jake's already put the offer together in his head. It's all that 34 cases.
Well, we've been talking about
Jake's
doing a
eyes
Bourbon
like
Matters barrel pick
Yeah.
with Gold Eagle.
Yeah, I'd vote yes on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I get to
we
keep
might not
bottled
have.
number
That's fine. I'm not going to argue you on that.
I'll say as soon as you said 34 cases, Jake's eyes just kind of glazed over. He went off into a different location.
But I think
quick.
It's a special barrel, and what's really great about that is, you could retail. I mean, if regular Old Orleans is, $54.99, you retail that at $59.99, and it's a 5-year barrel, which is unfortunate. Is I printed them all on the same label because you can save on printing costs, but that is just over a 5-year barrel, 21% rye, 113.9 proof, and I loved that barrel. It was just one of those where, how you talked about your 500 bottles, but you have your go-tos that you would drink whenever. That was like, that shined through for me.
Yeah.
And I love that. And it looks the way it does, too. I mean, let's be honest, it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Presentation,
Yeah, I think we were talking about it before we started recording. If not, sorry to everybody that's got to re-endure it. But, like, it's, I'm not particularly a fan of French oak. I think most times it's overdone. And,
Yeah.
like you said, if I'm drinking a bourbon, I want to know it's a bourbon first.
Yeah.
And then have the finish complement. And I think not only does the regular do that, but this single barrel also does that phenomenally well.
And there's a lot of French oaks that just dry your mouth out.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bingo.
And I think the first one I've tried that didn't do that was the Dark Arts, because you use the Jubilis Fleur French oak. But this is like total opposite of what you would expect from French oak. It like quenches your mouth.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you still get the complex nuances of the French oak, and so
You get those nice, like, kind of spicy notes that come in and, like, really complement the sweetness of bourbon really well. And
Yeah,
like
that's-
Dan was saying, it's very dessert
Yeah.
kind of.
It's very dessert forward.
Yeah.
It's not dessert like in Amberana finish.
Oh,
No.
fuck.
It's not overdone. It just has a nice,
It's not
very
overly decadent.
it's like an aperitif dessert. Like it's decadent. It's a tad sweet, but it's beautiful all around. It's very well balanced.
Yeah.
And damned.
I was waiting for you to come in with
Yeah,
that.
you
run out of
didn't
it
think that
eventually.
far ahead.
No, I was waiting. Someone
up,
had to
dude.
say it.
Shut up.
It's damned because there's only 34 cases.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Minus one bottle.
Yeah. No, my friend. There's 34 cases with me already having taken.
He already took it out.
Yeah, my friend does. I will say too, when we did the first release of the Old Orleans single barrel at cast strength at Jeb's spot, Riverton Party Store, it's called. Really, just such a great spot. Sold 180 bottles, like 3 hours, and he had his best day of sales ever that day. And this is a place that's been in business for over 30 years.
And right in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
kind of southern
Yeah, it's
Illinois.
like Springfield.
Springfield, okay, so not in the middle of nowhere, but to us, it's the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not Chicago, so it's
No,
nowhere.
yeah.
You gotta be, right?
Such great people that are willing to support a small but growing brand, because you think about it, like, you talk about Elijah Craig or Jack Dan, Brown Forman products, etc. Yeah, they're good, that's great. But it's a machine,
Yeah,
you're supporting a machine, And the other thing that I like to bring up and remind people about, bourbon and rye is that you're supporting American, right? Tequila, right now is all the rage and it's the hot thing. It won't be for me. You know what I mean? I love what this country has done for me and my family, etc. And I mean, shit, my mom and grandfather came over on a boat. There's a lot of people that suffered to get me to where I am now, and I'm very grateful to the U.S. for that. And it's you're not going to deal with tariffs with bourbon and rye,
Right.
You're really not. And if you really want to get into Americana, it's the rye,
Yeah.
the rye whiskey.
Yep.
Because rye, came around before bourbon, and I
And
love
Thomas Jefferson distilled rye. Washington might have too at Mount Vernon, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, King George II, in the middle of the 1700s, when he was in charge of us prior to us having our independence, sent out a national decree that said, do not distill with corn. We are going to use corn to move westward. We're going to feed our people and our livestock with corn. If you're going to distill, use rye. It's great. Essentially. And rye, like if, I was, we were talking about, weeds earlier, making the joke, and we're sitting in my backyard, and people on video can't even, see the expanse of, where weeds can grow in this damn, lot. But there's a lot of place for weeds to grow. And I like to make the joke that, like on this patio, if a rye seed just fell, even on the rock itself, it would start sprouting. Rye grows anywhere, and it's, just it's such a hardy, growth too. Mm-hmm. And so, that's why, it was, told to distill with rye. Now, rye is near and dear to my heart. I have 2 rye whiskeys. If you like rye whiskey, my ryes are ungodly good.
Me.
Yeah, they are incredible. I mean, this is the most curated, best barrels out of MGP. That's, Sam Schmelzer, who's the master blender, or was, he's left. And as a matter of fact, Sam, I actually joined the Beautiful and the Damned as master blender. He was the master blender for MGP for a number of years, over a decade. And he knows everything about all the batches and barrels of MGP, and the barrels that you have in Man of Leisure and the Diplomat are the best out of MGP in at least 7 years, according to Sam Schmelzer. And Cumming Whiskey Rye of the Year, 96 out of 100 points. I mean, they're flavor bombs. They're so good. As a matter of fact, at our event at Gold Eagle, the Diplomat was the best seller.
Yeah, we sold out and oversold multiple cases.
I couldn't even save
Which-
the bottle.
You got one.
I get it later.
But I remember telling you guys, like, this has never happened before. And I think we put in our post summarizing the event where a rye outsells the bourbon at an event. And it outsold the bourbon like 2-1. And the bourbon sold very well, but this one rye was just the star of the show.
Yeah, I'm drinking the Diplomat right now. It is fantastic.
It's amazing.
Like I believe that this is one of the better batches out of MGP. I mean, I'm a sucker for the 95.5
What? No.
mash bill,
Well,
which everyone should know by now.
but
but-
the 95.5 mash bill is so different too, like bottle to bottle and barrel to barrel.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking for when you're picking out 95.5? Because they can be all over the place,
Yeah,
flavor
they can.
profile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can. And it's some things you can't fully explain. It's like trying to think how you would describe it. It's like when you go to Italy and you eat amatriciana there for the first time, and it has that guanciale in it, which is the cut up, pork, cheek, etc. It has this amazing flavor and taste, and just whoa, your eyes light up, etc. It's like that. And I will tell you, you will drill into some of the barrels at MGP, and you will say, oh, that's really good. Yeah, it's MGP rye. It's really good. And you'll drill in some others, and you'll say, oh my God. It's like, seeing your beautiful wife for the first time. It's like, seeing, eating amatriciana for the first time. It's like that, first sip of first growth, French Bordeaux, and you just know. You just know. It's a special, special barrel. And here's the cool thing about stuff like that. Yeah, in the Diplomat, I have, 7 to 9 year, rye whiskey in that. But I have had those holy shit moments with 5-year rye, where I've said, oh my God, that is incredible. And once you guys, you get to taste that at some point in time in the bottled to bond expression that we're going to come out with, 100 proof. It'll be a 5-year, rye whiskey, and it's going to retail at $49.99. And those
Won't
barrels
feel bad about making old fashioned
are
with it.
unbelievable. Well, you shouldn't feel bad about making an old fashioned with anything, especially with the amount of whiskey you have.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I would-
That stigma went away a long time ago for me.
I don't save bottles for special occasions anymore. Every day can be a special occasion.
Yes.
You know, I have this great story where come home from work. You know, investment banking is a 80-hour-a-week job. I come home and it's a Tuesday. Jen is sitting in the kitchen and she's making an amazing meal. And she has this bottle of wine open that she's already halfway through, and she's singing and dancing and cooking her food. She's excited. And I say, hey, babe, how do you like that wine? She's like, oh, it's amazing. I love it. It's so good. We need to get more of it, right? I was like, yeah, we should get more of it, sweetheart. Sweetheart, that is a Ponte Canet from Bordeaux. That bottle cost me $300. It's a Tuesday, my love. And she's unapologetic about things like that. She said, we should definitely get more.
She cooks more meals like she cooked tonight. I would definitely say it's worth it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and you know, I don't think you should save, you know, special whiskey for special occasions. I think you should drink it all the time. People want to make. I mean, I love, like, there's a place right down the street here from my house called the Graceful Ordinary.
Wonderful.
Oh, they're so great. Such great people there too, and they have all of our expressions, and they actually made a brilliant drink out of Old Orleans. And I will ask. There's a bartender there, Lauren, that I'll ask to just, you know, I go in there and say, dealer's choice. Make me whatever you want out of my stuff, and her go-to is really the Diplomat. You know, she loves the Diplomat, but she will make some drinks on the Diplomat that are like, oh my god! But it's the Diplomat in the last line, just, you know, crazy, interesting drinks.
Yeah. I mean,
Old fashions, brilliant.
that would make a killer Manhattan, I think,
Oh yeah. Well,
with a really good vermouth to pair.
oh yeah.
But yeah,
So the Scar Club, I'm a member of a Scar Club downtown called the Clayton. Really, really awesome spot, by the way. Phenomenal spot.
That's where I first met Raj. Was
Oh,
at
that
the
makes
Clayton.
sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And Clayton is like, the way I would describe it is like a 5-star hotel that's not a hotel. It's just, you know, 3 floors, and it's a private club where you can just smoke and drink and fraternize, etc. And in the basement, if you go and you order Manhattan, what do they use in their Manhattans? The Beautiful and the Damned. So, yeah, I think I love sipping things neat. I mean, you know, especially when you're first trying things, etc. But I've made an old fashioned out of my 18-and-a-half-year-old. That's my oldest bourbon that I own, and it was good.
yeah.
And sorry, listeners, you can't buy it.
Yeah.
You can't buy it. Yeah, you can't buy it. There's just not enough to sell it.
Yeah.
There's not enough to sell it. I just share it with friends. You know.
I can't even buy it.
Yeah.
I got to come over to Kevin's house.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. It's a good reason to hang out, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I am, because I think you're, oh, that's the Diplomat.
That's the
Last line.
Yeah.
Last
Mhm.
line.
Where's my
This is the
drink?
Diplomat.
This is,
Oh, the Leisure.
Oh, the
Man of
Man
Leisure
Yeah, that's the
is,
100 proof rye.
yeah, 100 proof, I think, suits well to
Oh, yeah.
rye so well.
Yes, it does.
And, like,
I love that you know that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, it does.
I mean, to go back to Jack Daniels for a minute, when they finally released the bonded bourbon, the bonded rye, I was like, where the fuck has this been through the existence? You know?
Now, the thing that's fun too with whiskey is trying to determine. It's chaos. Blending, I have found is chaos. If you really want to take it as seriously as I like to, it's chaos, because I will come across some barrels at cask strength, because that's what you're tasting at first. And you have to transport yourself to say, what would this taste like at 94 proof, Old Orleans, or 100 proof, Never Surrender Man of Leisure. And I have had barrels, and I love doing this. I was just at MGP 2 weeks ago, something like that, and we were fucking around with this, and that was, let's try it at cast strength, and let's proof it down to 100 and see the difference. There were 2 barrels that we tried at cast strength that were very good, and I could tell had potential. But at cast strength, I would say, if I use this in a blend, I would have to look for these types of barrels to offset this and this that I'm finding in this, because it was just maybe a little too char-like, whatever the hell it may be, or too much dark fruit or whatever it may be. And then we would proof it down to 100. That 100 proof version was unbelievable. And so you start out with this cast strength that in your mind you'd say, that's a B plus cast strength. That at 100 proof, it's like, oh my God, this is unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? And that's fun too.
Well, that's what we did with that Whiskey Acres.
Well,
pack.
yeah, we did a couple of things. We talked about it on the podcast before, but one of the blinds that we did a Gold Eagle. Just a complete blind taste. You had no idea what it was. One of the rounds. Obviously, you don't know what it is. You take your notes afterwards. You talk about it, get flavor profiles, and see what people think. And Jake had done a round where he took our Whiskey Acres bottle, poured it in one glass, took the exact same Whiskey Acres bottle, poured it in another glass, dropped 3 drops of water into it,
I love it.
and no one.
Nobody thought it was the same distillery.
Yeah.
And it was the same, it was 5 drops of water, but it was the same,
Well,
it was a half-ounce pour.
Okay, let me make sure I understand. Okay, so you put 3 drops of water?
So here's what I did. So we do blind tastings all the time, and I've never messed with any of the pours. They're always straight out of the bottle. But this time I decided I poured our Whiskey Acres barrel pick at barrel strength in 1 glass, and then I poured half-ounce pour. Then I poured the exact same bottle in another glass, half-ounce pour, and I put 5 drops of water in one of them. And nobody knew it was the same distillery.
What was
Let alone the exact same bottle.
That's so great. And in the original, what was the proof on the cast strength?
That'd have been probably 118.
Was it the-
That'd have been your first barrel pick.
Yeah, 118.
This is a half an ounce.
And the one with the drops of water, I think 1.
Yeah.
102.
And that's
Yeah, just a little over 100.
and that's kind of what we told people was, hey, this opens up very nice with some drops of water.
Yeah.
And we encourage you to experiment with drops of water on this pour. And yeah, I think the one with the drops won, but the coolest part was nobody thought it was from the same distillery, let alone the exact same bottle.
Well, and we did that with the
That's very
toasted.
funny.
Yeah, our
One,
toasted
too.
barrel finish.
Yeah, we did. This was a cool one too. We did a barrel pick of Whiskey Acres toasted barrel. It was the only toasted barrel they had. We tried it at 129, 120, 132. And it was not good enough to pick it as a barrel, but it had such a cool story, and it was very good.
It was
But it just
super long finish. It was like
super
2.5
long finish,
years in toasted.
but you could tell it needed something.
Yeah.
So we did a podcast at Whiskey Acres where we tried it at 5 different proof points blind, and it was easily unanimous. I think it was at 109 proof where we were 108 where we were like, all right, this is it, and that
Yeah.
barrel sold out quick.
Yeah.
And I've always told when I was at Whiskey Acres that I thought their stuff tastes best right around the 110 range. And so I just told I told Rob, or the master distiller, I'm like, give me 5 different proof points, put it in an envelope with what everything is. Let me know what each bottle. Give me a letter on each bottle. We'll try it. And it was one of those where as soon as you took it, even before you tried the other samples, you're like, this is really damn good.
And it was
That
funny.
like the second or third we
Second,
tried.
yeah.
We were all like, "Phew, all right."
It was funny because
That might be it.
you had brought us a sample, and it was like, this is the coolest story ever because it's the only toasted barrel, and it was like a leaker barrel, and it's one of the
forgot about the
oldest
warehouse.
Shoved
NO,
behind the
got
radiator.
forgotten
Some
about,
boiler, so it proofed up.
8+ year, and it was 132 proof, and we were so excited, and then we tried it, and it was like, all right, this is really good, but I can't buy the whole barrel. It's not good enough to buy the whole barrel. So we totally wrote it off, and then a month later we came back to it because of that blind where we tried the
Yeah.
other barrel with water, and people liked it better. So like, let's go back to that original toasted barrel add some water at different proof points, see if it changes things.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're not doing adult science experiments at home with your whiskey, you're losing out, right?
Yeah.
You need to be entertaining yourself.
But every master class, it's worth trying it neat, put a drop of water in, and try it again,
Oh yeah.
and see how it changes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it might not be that much. Sometimes it's like a completely different whiskey, and it's crazy, just from one drop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen. It's rare to see it. When I always say I rate barrels. I have 3 kids, so of course grades are part of my house. But A to C, right, or A plus to C minus even. And at MGP, if anything is a C minus, they're just gonna pass it through and have it go to the turn it to GNS, right? We distill it up to 192. But there's variation in every distillery out there. Heaven Hill, Bardstown, Willett, etc. By the way, I love the story of Willett. Willett, do you know how Willett started?
You're the Willett expert over there, Jake.
I feel like every distillery or brand has many different stories.
Yes,
So-
that's exactly right.
Let's hear it.
MGP.
Yeah.
MGP.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they also, for a little while, I've heard some stories where they ran into, and we've heard other brands where they start out with MGP and then they try to go their own distillate. And people are like, oh, where's that old stuff you had? It's so good.
Well, I mean, that's
The High West.
Yeah.
We talk about that with the High West.
That's
all the
a
time.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the most common.
when we first started the podcast, MGP was still like, oh, what's that dog shit?
Yeah.
You
Yeah, everyone
know?
still sits on
Yeah.
it.
I mean, that's when I remember
everything.
when I first started working at the store, and this was probably 9 years ago. And my dad we were walking through the aisles. He was telling me what he knew about bourbon, and it was like, oh yeah, this Indiana stuff never gonna sell. Nobody wants it. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, boom, MGP was everything MGP sold out immediately when it hit the shelf. Eventually, it got oversaturated, and then you quickly saw the separation between the quality brands and the stuff that was just capitalizing on the MGP hype.
It is really funny to think about like Willett. I mean, people think of Willett and they're like, oh, it's incredible. It's Kentucky, all through and through. All they started out with MGP, my friends.
Mhm.
And,
A lot of the purple tops are still MGP, right?
A lot of it is Heaven Hill, I
Is
believe.
it? Okay.
Now.
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 Okay.
yeah, the independent bottling. People ask me, are you ever going to open up your own distillery? And I say nope, and I'm very quick to say no because why do that when you can curate the absolute best barrels from distilleries that have been doing this for 150,
Yeah.
in MGP's sake, 170 years. I think I'm gonna take that approach.
And especially now with all the distilleries out there that are
Oh.
overproducing,
Oh my
and
God.
there's going to be some good stuff on the market.
Oh,
The
yeah.
proposition of here's a single release or a single blend of these specific barrels that we put together is much more enticing to the avid bourbon enthusiast than here's my shit that I
Yeah.
put together out of my
Yeah.
still that
Oh, yeah.
may or may not be
That might
up
actually
your
be
alley.
shit. Yeah.
You know.
Well, we talked about barrel pricing's changed a little bit, but in the last couple of years, has anything changed besides pricing with MGP and in terms of what you're able to get with people sitting on thousands of barrels that they bought a couple of years ago? Are you seeing a difference in quality of what you're able to pick out of MGP now?
So if you were to have called without a connection to MGP, if you were to call MGP even 2 years ago and say to them, hey, 2.5 years ago, hey, I'm going to start a whiskey brand and I want to talk to you about sourcing some whiskey. They would say, well, yeah, we can talk about it. We could probably get you like 4 barrels a quarter.
Yeah.
4 barrels a quarter.
And they're all like 2-3 year or something.
And it's expensive, very expensive. That was definitely happening. They're smart businessmen over there, right? They know that there's a glut of whiskey barrels in the market, And one of my favorite stats, do the math on this, 1.4 billion proof gallons of whiskey are maturing in warehouses currently.
Mm-hmm.
American whiskey, 1.4 billion proof gallons.
More than the entire country could drink in any reasonable amount of time.
How many years did we say you had on your shelves?
34.
We're not there, but but honestly, like, we have and are sitting on aging in our warehouses between Kentucky, Indiana, and others. Somewhere between, depending on when you take it out, because there's angel share amongst other things, what are you proofing it at, et cetera, how many 9-liter cases are selling, and in the United States, 31 million 9-liter cases a year or so. Thinking about exporting to other countries, I only know, the billions of dollars, like it's about $2 billion a year that's exported in American whiskey. And so you can kind of back into that, right, and say, okay, maybe that's another 10,000 9-liter cases. But if you do the math on that 1.4 billion proof gallons and, the number of cases that are being, consumed each year, we're sitting on somewhere between 13 and 20 years worth of whiskey aging in our warehouses. 13 and 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you see all these older age statements coming out. You see these distilleries saying, if we don't put this out now, it's going to get to a point where it actually will be pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see age statements creep up like crazy. I can tell you that I can buy 8-year whiskey for the same price that I would pay for 4-year whiskey 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
That's crazy.
It's crazy. If you're a value seeker, and don't get me wrong, some of these barrels, like, 'cause obviously I'm gonna have to try every barrel that I buy. I literally test every barrel that I put in every batch. But you can get a hold of some 8-9-year barrels for prices that would blow your mind. In the secondary market, folks trying to create cash flow for their business because they are in trouble, right? Think of all the small brands that thought they were going to grow by leaps and bounds, that own $4 million worth of barrels, and they're selling 5,000 cases a year.
Yeah.
Do the math on that. It's going to take forever for them to go through those. It's for a guy like me, that is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
So we've had this debate multiple times about who wins in the whiskey glut, right? And I think
Consumers for sure.
I
Yeah.
think all of us are on the side of the consumer ends up winning, because the only logical conclusion is that prices will either stabilize for the foreseeable future or drop.
Especially for those brands that were overcharging at market entry.
Right.
Yeah. I think we have hit a point in the market where things have leveled off. They can't come down much more than they already have. But, you are seeing some barrels trade hands at less than replacement cost. For example, I'm not going to buy new fill now, which used to be a tried and true investment, because I can buy 2-year sometimes for the price of new fill. So why would I do that? That is everything. But I think it is the consumer that is going to win. So let's talk about it from Jake's perspective. You keep going back to that.
This
That's
is-
hilarious, dude.
I was waiting for someone to say something, but this is like
Good job.
everything we've had tonight is phenomenal. But for me, this is like
It's a special little.
couldn't ask for anything better.
It's a special little bottle, isn't it?
There's this trap that he set up on you. Jake, it worked. You playing this out?
Well, you see it as a trap, maybe, because you're always that's how you view
Yeah,
things.
here's the
But
deal.
I view things as we've been talking about doing a Bourbon Matters barrel pick for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's only right that it kind of fell in our lap.
Yeah. I
You
do
still gotta work
agree.
out those details, boy. you still gotta convince him to sell you those cases
I mean,
and sign it down the line.
we're drinking his whiskey, smoking cigars on his patio.
Pretty fucked
I don't
up.
think there's many other details that we need to talk
Yeah,
about.
no, I mean,
I was listening to a podcast on the way
Bottle
here, and
one.
they kept talking about how
Yeah,
the
that
best
was-
salesmen in the United States or the world force you to want to buy from them.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake's hook, line, and sinker on this.
The problem is you're not gonna get that in time before I move to Utah, so this Jake's gonna have to mail me some essential oils or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
I'll give him the shipper case.
In Jake's,
Yeah.
in Jake's defense, I like to always have my 5 expressions that I sell, and then I like to always pull fun things from
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, and busy day today, and so I look up on my shelf, and what do I see? The 18.5 here in the single barrel 2, and so that's how they are on this table here, and
You said it's one of your go-tos, so
it
makes sense.
You're not going to keep all 34 cases for yourself.
Jake will give you a coupon code afterwards.
buy back some of that. Yeah, the funny. I will say the funny thing about single barrel, the single barrel one that Riverton had. I had some buddies that were like, "Fuck, dude, I wanted some of that." I was like, "Dude, I don't know. I'm sorry, man." Like I told the guy I was going to give him. So I bought at retail, for my buddies back home, 2 cases worth. It was very funny. That's the way the world should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the way the world should be. Yeah, but it's just careful curation of barrels. It's being extraordinarily discerning, knowing that even though my name is nowhere on that, it still is.
Well,
And,
there's some element that it's your company at the end of the day, right?
Mhm.
You have pride in what you're putting out, so everything you put out matters.
And yeah, bourbon matters. Mhm.
Yeah, bourbon matters.
does matter.
All right, take us behind the scenes. You're an MGP. You're tasting barrels. You're looking for your next
Playland.
lot or specific barrels.
Yeah.
Take
Do
us
they
through
let
that.
you drill into anything you want?
Well, I can't. No, I can't drill into barrels that are owned by other companies.
Yeah.
That would be an asshole.
And how did the whole relationship start?
Investment banking career. Yeah. And they're good guys, and there's the business side of MGP, and then there's the art side of MGP. For me, I like to say that The Beautiful and the Damned is more art than commerce. For me, in that what I make on The Beautiful and the Damned, I throw back into the business through marketing or incentivizing sales reps or hiring people, etc. Like I said, I'm toying with the idea. Would love to let's I'm a ones and zeros kind of guy. Talk about whatever, super honest, etc. Toying with the idea of having Sam Schmelzer, who's the master blender at MGP for over a decade, helped build Penelope, helped with all the old High West stuff, right? Helped with all the high-end releases that MGP had, the Remuses, etc. Thinking about having him be the master blender of The Beautiful and the Damned. And I would say, Jake, on your side, as a retailer, a big retailer, especially, the state of Illinois, how does that resonate with you as a retailer? And then how would that resonate with you guys as consumers? So The Beautiful and the Damned, highly curated barrels, award-winning stuff, 96, 98 out of 100 points, San Francisco, small batch, Bourbon of the Year finalist, etc. And now they just, landed Sam Schmelzer as their master blender, and he was the master blender at MGP for a long period of time. How does that resonate on the retail side, and then let's say how does that resonate on the consumer side?
My first thought would be the quality is already there. So why do you need someone like that to step in and do his magic? But second thought would be, this is kind of Old Elk bringing on Greg Metz. You're gonna get instant attraction across the country, do you have not only the inventory and capacity to scale up
Yeah,
to supply the demand, but will the quality still be there
yeah,
where it is now?
yeah.
And I don't know Sam. I'm sure based on his background, he's going to do a phenomenal job blending these barrels. But when you go from, I think you're in 4 states,
Yeah.
to the demand that they're going to ask for when the press hits on
15,
this,
20,
15, 20, 48 states, you know, do you have the capacity to scale up and get the same quality barrels and put out the same quality blends?
Well, and that's what you're thinking of too, because if you're tasting everything,
Yeah.
you're trying to
Mhm.
get enough distribution in 48 states. I mean,
You
you
will.
could do it. You're not going to do anything else but sleep in a rick house and be drunk every second of every day.
Mhm.
Where you're
Oh,
gonna
I
need,
have stories about that.
Yeah.
which isn't
we
a bad
got to get
thing.
into that too, but yeah.
But,
I mean,
but yeah,
that's-
as why don't you go as a consumer first on your side?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I think the bourbon enthusiast would see that as a huge selling point. Yeah, I think my main counter to that was your same point that like whoever's blending it now is doing a really good job. So,
Yeah.
do you really need any additional
this
touch?
guy.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more on you and if how quickly you want to scale it up, because you know once that
Yeah.
happens, you're going to have heads turning your way all across the country
Yeah,
and possibly
I-
across the world.
yeah, I'd say if you're ready for that kind of
Mhm.
growth, then that would be the move. But if
Absolutely.
not, I'd give it a little bit.
My thing on the consumer side, that looks good and that sounds good. At the end of the day, though, just from going through a bunch of master classes at Gold Eagle, if you don't have a sales rep that can sell all that stuff with everything else with it, it doesn't matter. Because I've not been to as many as you guys have been, obviously, but like there's been some ones there I was excited to go learn about a brand, and the person that taught me about the brand didn't build up anything, and then I tried the whiskeys. I'm like, well, they're okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure if you're a normal listener, you probably know one of the ones I'm talking about, but they just, it's like, all right, well,
Which
they're
I
okay.
don't agree with, but
Yeah, he doesn't agree with me. Jake does, though.
Yeah.
I agree with this Jake on one thing.
I'll tell you later.
well, I agree on the presentation aspect. I don't agree on the whiskey.
Yeah, but I didn't get blown away by the presentation, and the whiskey was meh, and I'm like, I'm not going to support this then. So, that married with a sales team that's passionate about it is...
But that's kind of like playing both sides there, because if you have someone like that, do you really need like the best sales team?
But do you like Blackened when they have? I mean, they used to have Pickrell's name on there. Did people go buy Blackened just because Dave Pickrell's name on it, or were they buying it because it was Metallica?
Yeah.
If you want to grow this thing organically and slowly,
Little whistle pig, pickerel, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he helped us
Mhm.
with Whiskey Acres get started too, which was
he helped a lot of
them,
people.
but-
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
But-
mean, now even Rob Dietrich's name's on everything, but no one cares or gives a shit about Rob Dietrich. It's Metallica's name on the bottle. They care about the Metallica side more
I
than
think
anything else.
I think your roots in the beginning, you talked about how you want to grow this organically in the right way and slowly, and I think that would not be a good move for that. But if you do have full trust in him and you really want to take this to the next level, then that'd be the way to go. And I think
Yeah.
there's plus and
Oh,
minuses to both.
Unless you're really, really strict about your growth plan after that,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which I
could
think
be.
there's a balance that probably could be struck there.
Definitely a balance, yeah, that you can find. And it sounds like you have a pretty good relationship with Sam.
Wow.
So how did we found out how it started, but like your first time going to MGP, tasting through barrels, figuring out what you're gonna do with the brand, take us through that whole process and like how that's changed and what you do now when you're looking for barrels.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy that gives some of the best. Well, one thing that's unfortunate about MGP is that it's not like a Buffalo Trace or Bardstown, et cetera. You can't just go there and go on a tour.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget that it's like an industrial
Oh yeah.
supplier.
grain
of
company.
Grains.
And so you go there. There's a gentleman by the name of Perry that gives the best tours of MGP. He has all the great facts. He has this great personality, etc., and he can walk you around and tell you everything about every aspect of MGP. That from Perry is where I learned that MGP really upped the game for rye whiskey everywhere because they were being, and this is many years ago, 70s, 60s, whatever it may be, they're being delivered rye that wasn't up to their standards. And they're calling the rye company saying, this is not up to our standards, we need you to do X, Y, and Z to it. But and they're like, what, it's like, it contains what, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they wanted more of something. And the rye provider's like, well, we sell to, and they named all the big companies, and we sell the rye to them, and they're fine with it. Like, what's wrong? Sorry, it's just not up to our standards. And MGP sources their rye from northern Germany and Sweden, and it's the most consistent, flavorful rye in the entire world, and they insist on nothing else. And others have started to catch on, of course. And MGP is the one that is responsible for upping the game for the individual component, the grain component of rye whiskey, for example. So you learn things like that from Perry. And they have all the warehouses, 20 different warehouses, 15 of which I would select from, really 10 when it comes down to it. And it's all on their main campus in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. That's where I get all of my barrels. They have warehouses in Sunman, Indiana, and they also have some warehouses in Kentucky. But it puts off different flavor profiles. Sunman, very close. And there are actually some barrels in Sunman that I almost hit the bid on, but didn't. I wanted to stay true to the terroir of whiskey, which is, it's distilled here. I want it to be aged right here. And so go there, meet all the business types. So it's not just the sales folks and the master blenders and the distillers, etc. Also met with some of the big shots there and talking with them, etc. Did a number of things, and just toured throughout and said, if I'm going to do this, I want to curate the absolute best barrels. And so there are those there that have notes on every ounce of distillate that has come off the stills over the course of 12 years. There are other bottles here, but
No.
hey, could you
No.
throw me the Never Surrender?
Yeah.
And having that cheat sheet, the original tasting notes and tasting notes over the years on those batches is everything. It's everything. And I knew when I got access to that, and others didn't, and then we started to do the adult science experiment of, okay, well, let's just go blind. I want whatever, 7-year, whatever, 21% rye barrel. Let's look at that. And then let's use the cheat sheet. Okay, I want batch, blah, 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 from warehouse J on floor 4. Boom. And tasted them side by side. Oh yeah, there's a difference. And I will tell you, there are some people at MGP, let's think of why they would say this, that would say, oh, location doesn't matter that much.
Well, that's a lie.
Age relative to, it doesn't matter that much. You tell that story. Yeah, you keep telling that story. And you tell it very convincingly to every other brand that comes in here. Thank you.
Well, you go on the Buffalo Trace tour, and they tell you, they have a computer algorithm that tells them exactly where each warehouse sources each label from. So you can't paint that picture.
Yeah,
And tell the truth.
and I will say there are some folks that wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Oh, yeah.
50% of bourbon drinkers and or whiskey drinkers probably couldn't tell the difference. Unfortunately for me, given that I've been drinking whiskey since I was 3 years old, I can tell the difference. And to me, it's the difference between just, oh, yeah, it's a good whiskey, and the moment we were talking about earlier, we were just like, the heavens have opened.
Yeah.
And so I knew when I started the whiskey business. I was going to do one of two things: a whiskey business or a cigar business. And I was working with a gentleman on the cigar side to see how that was going to go. I was kind of dual tracking things to see which way I was going to go. And the cigars I was getting back, yeah, they were young, they were just rolled, etc. But I've been a cigar smoker since I was 18 years old. I can tell a good cigar and what it's going to turn into, etc. And I knew I was not going to be able to get a cigar that was as good as a Davidoff, which we smoked first, and or a cigar that was as good as Cuban tobacco, which we're smoking now. Wasn't going to happen. Immediately I said, this isn't going to work. And I knew with my initial meetings at MGP that I was going to be able to put something together that I was very proud of, right? And so that's why I did it. Will I stick with MGP? Certainly for a lot of my expressions, sure. Will I branch out, into others? I think it would be hard for me not to, because now I get the phone calls. Hey, we've been noticing your success, and we'd really like you to come and tour our facility. And you go and you get stuff sent in the mail. That's the other thing that happens to me all the time. Boxes of, I have more whiskey than I will ever need, as we've talked about, just like you do. And I get all these, all this whiskey sent to me. And what's very cool is I can be very discerning about it. I'll have some distilleries send me stuff, and I'll say, wow, this is really good. I have others, send me stuff, and I would think that I should really like it. And I'm like, damn, that's boring. Yeah. So there's that. But yeah, it's all, you have to have a unique selling proposition. Mine is, careful curation of barrels.
Yeah.
Slow proofing.
Well, I think the key there is that you're not married to any particular thing, as long as it fits within your paradigm of what you're trying to do, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say, I like to walk into Whole Foods and have all of the ingredients in front of me, and I can put them in my cart if I want to. If I opened up my own distillery, I would have to, a bad batch comes off, and for cash flow purposes, I have to sell that bad batch. And so I would have to pay someone to tell you it's amazing, because I'm not going to fucking like it, right?
Right.
Because I am ones and zeros. I tell the truth. Some people think I'm a little rude for it at times, but I could not tell people, this is incredible, you should drink this. No, it's shit. Dump it. And that would cost a lot of money, right?
So I guess, right now you're focusing primarily on blends. Do you see yourself moving into the independent bottling space, where you start being more, let's say, adventurous in where you select from, but very curated as well? Or
Well, make no mistake, I am an independent bottler, but
And maybe just to add on to that, will we see a general market single barrel Beautiful and the Damned, or is the focus on curating the best blends? Because I know you're big on layering younger whiskey with older whiskey to find the happy medium.
Yeah, the one thing though that I cannot deny is that I will come across batches of barrels that should be single barreled, and I know they should. And I will put it in a blend, because I want my blends to be holy shit amazing.
Yeah.
But there are some single barrels that I have, particularly some 8.5-year-old 21% rye barrels that this is just me playing around recently, that I'm like, oh my God, I really feel like I should single barrel these. And maybe it's just, last line single barrels, because they're within that flavor profile of Last Lion, and they're within that age range of Last Lion. And so I think, you'll see me start to do some of that. Now, are you talking about bland single barrel, where it's just they just take one barrel, bottle it, barrel, bottle it?
No, I don't like that, but I just mean you know, the brand is created off of curating a blend. You know, will we see some single barrel expressions that are going to go to multiple stores, multiple states, and
Yeah,
people are
right.
tracking down barrel numbers? And I think you already kind of answered that, but that was my question. Is, you know, when you come across those barrels that are so good to be a single barrel, and you're like, oh well, I'm trying to create the best blend, so I'm going to put it in the blend. Like, will we start to see more one-off?
Yeah.
Like small, very small batch,
And if-
single barrel
If I
type.
can build onto that, when do we get to go to the warehouse?
We're gonna talk after the recording ends.
So yeah, going to MGP is a treat. It really is, and they are extremely strict.
I would imagine so.
They're extremely strict, and it's kind of like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. You know.
You don't want to end up drinking the fizzy lifting drink and get kicked out for life, right?
And so that's more difficult. But I think, and you guys are obviously loving the barrel that I
What?
selected on there.
if Dan poured it 3 times for himself,
Yeah.
I was just sitting right there.
And
along with the other 6 bottles.
you know, so that type of approach, I think, is, you know, it's a fun one. You know, it certainly is. And I could see me doing it for Last Lion. You know, within that family. You know, single, you know, barrels, and you know, and or just put the barrel, you know, number on it. Just barrel them all.
And that could be
see what
your
people get.
limited edition, you
Yeah.
know, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, because it's you know it's hard to figure out. Those are MGP barrels that I'm talking about, but I mean there are some other barrels that I have access to that are, oh God, they're so damn good. I mean, you know, the ones that were going around that a lot of people started buying. Can't remember how many there were, but it was the Buffalo
Buff
Trace.
Turkey.
Yeah, Buff Turkeys.
I knew you were going
yeah.
there.
Yeah. And I had access, to those as well. But to me, that was these are really good, super floral. I mean, very floral. The proof was 132, something like that. And I'm sure I have some still at my house here. But very nice.
Let's go.
But what I knew was as following. I knew the following. I couldn't buy all because there was hundreds of them. Couldn't buy all 200 or 300 of them. That would be stupid. And all these other brands were going to do it, and I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Let them all whore it out, and they did. It's,
And they were expensive bottles, right? They were retailing like 300 plus.
yeah. Well, because those barrels were really damn expensive, super expensive. I mean,
You guys know the story on the Buff Turkey?
Kind of, yeah.
It's like distilled at Buffalo Trace with wild turkeys, mash bill,
bill,
but
yes.
Buffalo Trace yeast,
Oh,
right?
Buffalo
Or
Trace yeast?
was it Buffalo Trace yeast or Wild Turkey's yeast?
yeah, and then Buffalo.
Buffalo
and then
yeast.
They shipped it back.
And so Wild Turkey aged them for 15 years and then realized they were too off profile to sell, so they outsourced barrels.
And they're beautiful. I mean, they're really
Wild.
nice.
Yeah, but they're all selling for $300 a bottle
Yeah.
plus. Like I've seen them 300 to
Yeah.
400 retail.
But it's surprising that they just didn't just make a new label for them,
It is kind of surprising knowing them, but if they're getting,
Was this pre-Campari?
I
or
can't
post?
imagine. I mean, he probably knows, but I can't imagine what they were charging per barrel. If people
Oh,
are charging
yeah.
300 to 400 per bottle
Yeah.
out of these barrels.
There were some people that paid $10,000 for a barrel of that shit.
Jeez.
Crazy. Crazy.
We do that all the time.
And I mean, there's other great stuff out there now too. I mean, there's 22-year Canadian rye whiskey out there that is, whoa. I got some of that too. It's
One of your favorites.
That's a
Found North.
Oh, Found North, yeah.
that's a whole
Not
nother
a rye.
This
whole nother
is-
podcast episode there, because there's some really good old Canadian there,
yeah.
and a lot of people are just like anti-Canadian,
shit on Canadian.
just like how MGP was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And It's a little deeper.
It'll
than
come
that.
around.
I think it's just people's just hate of Justin Bieber and Alanis Morissette.
Well, it's Canadian Club and
Nickelback.
stuff like
The
that.
goddamn Nickelback.
Well, it's more people are just like, oh, I don't like Canadian whiskey, but it's like, well, did you know this was distilled exactly
if
like
you gave
bourbon
them
was
Pound-
distilled,
right.
but
If you gave them like
it's
Pound
not
North, they would have no
aged
idea
or
that
distilled
it
in
was-
America, so
Yeah.
can't call it bourbon.
Yeah, but there are those barrels out there that are absolutely incredible. So I have to think through that. What do I want to do next? What direction do I want to take the Beautiful and the Damned next? And there's a lot of exciting things going on. For guys like me that can take advantage of
The market
the
right now.
glut of barrels
Yeah.
that are in the market. I mean, the other sad thing is, and I'm sure you've seen this, and you can talk about some specific brands or not. I think I will, but there are some brands that are down. For example, last year in 2024, we're down 50% of what they were the year before, and then this year, they're down even further. Like the Beautiful and the Damned in Illinois. Obviously, everyone knows about Smoke Wagon, right? Smoke Wagon's big
Yeah,
brand
we've
name,
talked
et
about how
cetera.
much they've dropped.
Beautiful and the Damned outsold Smoke Wagon, so far this year in Illinois.
Wow.
And that is
I say wow, but it shouldn't be a surprise.
well, I would say it should be a surprise because Smoke
Well-
Wagon has been around, like,
Based off of what I see,
yeah.
it's not a surprise.
Okay. Yeah, I get you. I mean, it's stuff is just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
These brands that were plowing through product for years are down 50% in a single year. How do you deal with that? It's hard, especially when you were ramping up to have, and this is the terrible thing. All of these companies thought that their businesses were going to grow at 10 to 50%, say, a year. And instead of growing at 10 to 50% a year, they're down 50% in a single year. And not all of them, There are some that seem to be doing very well, and some of these smaller boutique brands that are growing still seem to be doing decently well. Rare Character from the outside looking in seems to be doing well, for example.
They're doing well.
Things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, pain in the ass to manage that business, I can tell you right now.
It's a lot of in and out.
Oh my
It's
God.
all in and out, and it's
All single barrels.
It's a lot of single. It's mostly all single
Yeah.
barrels in
Yeah.
very small batches.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot. to
Yes,
deal
you got to
with, I'm sure.
continuously
Yeah.
find and bottle and yeah, I don't.
Pass me a lighter.
I love Aaron. I love Smoke Wagon, but I think that's an example of right place, right time. Right when MGP was popping off, they got in,
Yep.
and this is what I would be fearful if I were you, is growing too quickly,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people will say their quality went down when they ramped up their production.
Yes.
And it used to be very hard to find, and now you can find it anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's still good. It's very good whiskey, but it's just not what it originally
It's
was.
not as consistent as it
Mhm.
used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people are cautious on what batches they buy, and they want
Yeah.
reviews on the batches before they
Yeah.
buy it.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the whiskey sales in your store year over year? Are you flat, down a little bit? What would you say? And you're
Dan
Pretty
Perks
unique
up here.
Yeah. No, I mean, we talk about it. Your store is different. I
Our store is different.
Yeah, your store is different than a lot of other stores.
Yeah, I mean we
Very
kind of we
dedicated
plateaued
consumer
for a little bit, but now I think we're back on the upward trajectory, and a lot of that has to do with we just started shipping to 40 different states for spirits. Don't ask me how. It was a 5-year-long process of figuring out how to do it, but we did
You were-
it.
On the first episode you ever guest appeared on, you were teasing that it was going to be any day, and it took like 3 years.
Well, it took years for us just to ship within Illinois.
Yeah.
And then, like, it took 3 years for me to figure out how to ship across the country. And there's a lot of loopholes,
Oh yeah.
but we figured them out. And
You
so,
still
like,
can't get to my state though.
can't get to Utah because Utah sucks.
No
But
one can get to
yeah.
Utah.
yeah, I think
You're SOL.
we can ship spirits to 40 states. We can ship wine to 48 states, and Utah is one of the two that we cannot.
Yep.
The differentiation between wine and spirits is so wild.
Yeah.
Like, why is there even a difference?
But now we're getting right now we're getting about 10 to 15 shipping orders a day
Wow.
to other
jeez.
states.
God, I love that.
And it's-
what kind of advertising are you doing?
We just started doing Google ads, which has like
Oh.
boomed
Oh, okay.
the shipping.
PPC, look at you.
Before we even started doing Google ads, we were doing 2 to 4 shipments a day. Now it's up to like 10, 15.
A lot of that's because of the loyalty and people that move out and they can.
Yeah, we have-
You got to really you have a really loyal, dedicated fan base.
We have a good we have a very
And then
good following.
You also have your people that know people out of states that are looking for stuff.
Mhm.
That's always on the shelf at Gold Eagle, and that's the only way they'll be able to get it.
People trust us, and I think I'm similar to what you're doing here. Like, we're with barrel picks, like, we're very picky with anything we put our name on. Like, we're not just gonna slap our name on something because we think it'll sell. Like, we need to stand
I'd say
behind
even
it,
what you
and
carry on the shelf.
even when we carry on the shelf, yeah, like,
So-
just because it's something that is gonna sell and fall off, like, we might not carry it. Like, it needs to impress myself, it needs to impress my brother. Like, we taste everything before we bring it into the store. Like, we make sure our whole selection is curated in some way or the other. The only exception to that would be if someone's like, hey, this is my everyday tequila, and like, I want to buy it from you. Can you please carry it? I'll buy it regularly, and like, yeah, we'll stock it. But yeah, we're very picky on what we put our name on, very picky on what we put in the store. So I think people do trust us, and if they see that we have it, or if it's a Gold Eagle pick, like, it's something worth trying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very important. You have to stay true to your name,
Mhm.
your brand, what you're trying to accomplish, and clearly it's working there.
Yeah.
And it is fun. I do love the independent stores, because they create these, brilliant, comfortable places for people to come in and explore new, and feel good about it, and they trust.
Mm-hmm. Trust
the,
is the biggest thing.
The owners and the people that work there, and they get to know each other and their tastes.
Mm-hmm.
It's important because, like, we were talking about earlier, where I have to buy, quote unquote, but I will buy all these bottles of competitors' whiskey. I'll take a, single dram of many of these bottles, and I will say, I am never going to drink this again. And this was $75, or this was $100 even. I'm like, oh, God, I don't even like this.
Yeah.
For me, that's more category, stuff like, this is, I got to be careful with this, but like American single malt, there's some of those where I'll taste them like, oh God, this is terribly executed.
That's
never going to touch it.
I think there's a great divide on American single malts. There's some that are absolutely phenomenal, and there's some that are absolute garbage, and that the middle ground has not been
Well,
established
the ones
yet.
that are doing them pot still, using lager tons and stuff, do everything off grain. Those are doing right, but you're getting a lot of these distilleries that are just doing single malts, running them through a column still.
Well, it's
Same
kind
thing
of
with bourbon. It's
it
completely
goes
different.
back to when we were talking about how when bourbon got too old and the marketers had to figure out how to sell it. Same thing with single malt. All these distilleries that are making great bourbon are experimenting with single malt, and then when it gets to 5-6 years, they're like, oh, it's not that great. Not what we thought it was
get
going
rid
to
of
taste
it.
like. Yeah, like, we have to figure out how to sell it. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of there's too many players that are trying to capitalize on the American single malt scene.
Yeah.
And certain ones are doing it very well, and most of them are doing it very mediocre.
Yeah. But I'm not really old enough to speak to this, but like the independent liquor stores are kind of like the independent record stores in the whiskey
Yeah.
world, where like you can find
God, I
those
used to
like
love
one or
those
two
were-
off like punk records, that
Yeah.
are like on a local label or whatever, that like
Yeah, that
you
was
can't
me
find
back in the
anywhere
day,
else,
actually.
know?
Yeah,
Like
I
that's
agree.
kind of the cool stuff
Yep.
that like Gold Eagle carries, or these other independent stores that like you're not going to be able to find, or at least not like if you go to a big box liquor store, why pick this one out of 300 options, where like at an independent store you might get recommended that one because you value their opinion and
Yeah.
you believe them and you trust them, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest word is recommended.
Yeah.
And like somebody that can actually talk behind it and stand behind it. And
Yeah.
their hand selling out there versus just getting an offer to bring in 200 cases and
Right.
get a good
and
price
that's,
on
I
it.
think the big kicker, I think, in this time of whiskey overproduction is, who are you going to trust to recommend you something new?
Mhm.
Are you going to follow through on that? And then, you know, are you going to go for the big corporate distillery,
Yeah.
or are you going to go try something new that's maybe local or whatever, you
Well,
know?
and I do think walking into a liquor store, you know, for those that don't fully understand the business, and it's intimidating.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
walk into the bourbon aisle, and you see that there's, you know, 200 different expressions on the shelf, and no one wants to look like an idiot,
Right.
We all want to at least pretend like we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we walk in and we see that, whatever, Baker's 7-year,
Yeah.
you know, or a Buffalo Trace. Oh, I've heard,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm gonna grab this. Yeah, Buffalo Trace. I'm a Buffalo Trace guy.
Yeah.
If you see the Beautiful and the Damned, you can say, oh, that looks cool. I don't know. If you're new to the bit, you don't know if it's good or not.
And when it's flanked by
Yep.
20 other bourbons,
Yep,
you know?
exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And so it's very difficult. This business is extremely difficult. I haven't fully, figured it out yet, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of guys that figured it out through the bourbon boom. That's cheating.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I like to say, when I do finally figure it out, it'll feel really good, because
Yeah.
it'll be real, right?
Well, I
And,
think that's the organic path, I think, is a good one. Moving through, I think one of the benefits of the age of social media is that word of mouth carries so much more weight than it previously had.
yeah.
That can be good and bad, as if the corporate distilleries force their way in there,
Yeah,
they can
yeah.
drown everyone else out. But I think there's a lot of good examples of word of mouth of local distilleries that have really taken off because the community around them
Oh, yeah.
has
Yeah.
adopted them and
Without
you know,
without a doubt.
thrown their support behind them.
Yep, without a doubt. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, back to your point about controlled growth. I think that's the best way to approach the current situation, is to not get too far over over your head and then have to compromise anything.
Yeah,
right?
I'll never allow myself to do that,
Yeah.
because I've seen what it's done to some of these brands that are now just sitting on the shelves, and it is what it is. You just have to be very mindful of that. And there are some, like the Beautiful and the Damned is not going to work in every liquor store that's out there. It's not going to be for every consumer
Right.
of whiskey that's out there. But for those that it is, it's been really cool to see what happens. I have people drive 5-6 hours to buy a case of something from an event that I have.
Yeah.
People ask me to sign bottles. That always cracks me up.
Yeah.
And
Which I want one, by the way.
I like to say that my kids would make such fun of me if they saw me signing a bottle of
Get
whiskey.
still up. Can we have you, Jake? Can we have that done right? Yeah, so we can
God,
get a reaction. And we can have him make fun of more Jake than you, though. That'd be the better part.
Well, you can ask Jake. I particularly look for owners and distillers to sign bottles
Yeah,
for
he
me.
does.
Because, sales reps, whatever, they come and go.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the owners and the distillers are who
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
want to put their name on something.
Yeah, and we put
and
our
then I can showcase it and be like,
Yeah.
look, this is the guy that owns it, and he signed this bottle, and it's awesome. You
Yeah.
know.
And I'd like to say, the Churchill references, put my blood, toil, tears, and sweat into,
Yeah.
not, thank God, not literally, but
Yeah.
into every bottle. Awesome.
I got a few rapid fire questions.
All
I know Dan's trying to wrap this up, but
Yeah.
so will we ever see a facility like a tasting room from Beautiful and
Yeah,
Damned?
you will
We
at
will.
some point.
Okay. And
Yeah.
where will that be? Is it going to be in
TBD.
Illinois?
I
Is it
think
going to be
it's
somewhere
I think
else?
it's
In
gonna be
Illinois. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be in Illinois.
All right.
Great place to run a business.
And what does your do you have a facility right now that you do your blending at, or is it just like
Yeah, but
what is
it's
that? I know it's not to the public, but like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's threefold. I'll do some of my blending in MGP itself. I will do some of my blending in Bloomington, Indiana, where I bottle everything, and I will do some of my blending at the bar that you guys were sitting at earlier.
Nice.
You never know when it's going to hit you. Like, I really want to revisit, X, Y, and Z, and I do a lot of that here, right? Or, I've been known to. I mean, with all honestly, I don't be surprised if at some point I turn up at your shop, call and say, "Hey, Jake, I'm going to pop in today. I want you to try, X, Y, and Z, and I have these barrels that I'm trying to figure out, et cetera. What do you think?" Multiple locations, and that's the brilliant thing about being able to send, my whiskey barrels anywhere I want. If I get, a batch of, 50 barrels delivered to my warehouse, I can have my guys there give me a liter out of all 50 of those barrels, which, by the way, is a lot. Typically, I start out with 200 mLs when I'm, revisiting things. And then I'll say, okay, these, put them together. Now I want a liter of that. Okay, boom, here I'm going to put, and I can do that anywhere in the country. Yeah, anywhere in the country. But you have to be very careful when you are tasting cast strength spirits, and you have a imported wood bar like I do there that has the finish on it, because when we go in there before you guys leave, you should look. You can see some areas of finish that have been taken out from
It's
the high
my
proof stuff.
dining room table has a couple of little drop spots on it.
That happens.
My last question, I'm gonna put you all on the spot. I can't walk away without this barrel of Old Orleans.
You're not putting me and Jake on the spot.
Well,
Yeah.
we had been talking. We've been talking for a long time about the next Bourbon Matters barrel pick, and part of the reason why I love bringing this up is because I think it's been at least a year where we've been like, hey, we need to do another barrel pick. We need to do another barrel
You wanted
pick.
me to go down to Bardstown and do a rye, and I said no.
Well, nothing has
We didn't
really.
put our name on the Knob Creeks that we picked, so
No, well, that was when I was guest appearing. Now I'm a full-time member of Bourbon Matters.
The only reason I wouldn't want to put our name on this bottle is because it's too beautiful the way it is,
So
and our shitty sticker will look like.
my thought
Put
would
in that
be
taste
my
of
thought
taste.
would be to do like a little circle, like single barrel select sticker, like the Sazerac ones, whatever, and it has like Bourbon Matters, Gold Eagle on it, and so. Are you guys down for this barrel?
Oh, 100%.
And are you down to give us this barrel?
I'm sorry, guys, I can't do it.
That is the best answer I've ever had. And I will not hate
That's
you if you say
only
no.
what I expected, but I had to do it on air
I'm the
and put the
asshole of
pressure
group, so I
on.
would love that as the actual answer.
Let's do. If you're willing to do something fun with it, let's do it.
All right.
If you're willing to do something fun with it, let's have a little, whatever the fuck you want.
I
we
love
can
it.
Hang out.
I mean, I love obviously we've talked a lot about how it tastes.
And how many times have we all grabbed that bottle?
Yeah. I went back to it, a couple times now.
I mean, I will say it's when you marry off. Like I have a daughter that's 21. When you marry off your daughter, you want her to go to somebody that is going to look at her in the way that you looked at her when she was little. You know what I mean? and it endures still now, right?
I'm so
And,
scared. Of
you
that.
guys,
You're gonna end up with a guy like me.
Oh God.
what I can tell you is, I actually think you guys love that bottle as much as I do. And so for that reason, that's all you can really want out of something that I like. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yours if you want it.
Well, I
And,
mean, like,
let's do something fun with it.
You know, we're probably in the realm of like 90% local listeners or something like that. So I can't think of a better partnership than
Bourbon
a local-
Matters.
Well, and he ships to 40
Beautiful
states,
and the
and then
Damned
this Jake can
Masterclass.
always send you essential oils.
Essential.
But not that Jake.
I don't know
This
why
the
I
other
get
Jake.
tasked with the illegal shipments.
I mean, I'm not
Well,
putting my
listen,
name
I'll
on. I'm not putting my name on an illegal liquor shipment.
Yeah, I didn't ask you to. I
I know.
said this, Jake. I called that from the start.
So yeah, if you're one of the lucky listeners who's listening to this, this is something you absolutely need to keep your eyes on.
Yeah.
We say that on and off a little bit, but this is one where this bottle blew me away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had some pretty epic pours today, but this one in particular, we all keep grabbing for.
Yeah.
What I love about it too is that is a five. I think it was. I have to look again, but I think it was 5 years, 1 month. That is the beauty of being open to not just obsession with age statement, but just obsession with bourbon whiskey, right? 5 years, 1 month, 21% rye, 113.9 proof, finished in French Riviera oak, to the point that I thought was appropriate, not overdoing it, not
Yeah.
underdoing it, and that's what you get. So
It's phenomenal.
look at that
Yeah.
shit. I guess I'm happy it found a home, the right home. That's really funny because I didn't pick it for any other reason than, oh, this will be fun for us
Yeah.
to drink.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could peer pressure you into
Right? Yeah.
All right. Well,
It worked.
Beautiful.
before Jake
Excellent.
plugs his store and gives you a coupon for the other beautiful and damn products, not the single barrel that we'll be doing, I want to say that I really appreciate Kevin for one thing, and I'm going to do a plug today.
Oh, look at
Ooh,
you.
this must be
And
good.
this is for the Riverton Party Store. If you're down South Illinois
I love it. I love it.
and are looking for good whiskey, stop at the Riverton's Party Store
Oh,
at
yeah.
717 North 7th Street in Riverton, Illinois.
Damn right.
Great liquor store, probably the best liquor store I've ever heard of.
Stop looking at me, Dan.
Jake, you want to plug Gold Eagle now?
I'm gonna follow with that and just say I've heard a lot of good things about the Riverton Party Store, and apparently I gotta meet Jeb. Like,
Oh, he's such a great.
yeah. So hopefully that will come at some point. But you know where the real liquor is, Gold Eagle. What I'm gonna throw it back to you guys. What's our coupon code for Beautiful and the Damned? What do you think it should
Well, it's not
be?
on a single barrel.
Well, no, but the core products, I mean, we have all the core products in stock, and they're all phenomenal. We actually have 4 of them at the bar right now, so if you haven't tasted them, you can come in and try them. But I think we should give off a coupon code. So BM
Damn.
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 All right,
D-A-M-N.
perfect. BMDAMN. BM Dam will get you 10% off any Beautiful and the Damned product that we have in stock. It will exclude the single barrel because I think the suggested retail price is a steal
Yeah.
for this bottle. You don't need a coupon. Hopefully, and I think it will
Negotiated terms of that.
go quick. That's why I said the suggested retail price, not the price. I didn't quote the price. Never quote the price on the podcast.
Yeah.
Never. Never quote the price anywhere until you get the invoice. But yeah, BM Dam will get you 10% off all the products we have in stock. Come in and try them. These are phenomenal blends. They take, I think they take MGP to a whole new level. But yeah, you can find that at goldeaglewine.com. Download our app, shop online, come visit our store, 255 Peterson Road in Libertyville. Follow us on Instagram at Gold Eagle Wine. Follow us on Facebook at Gold Eagle Spirits. Back to actually plug. Where can we find more info on Beautiful and the Dam?
Yeah, go to beautifuldamnedwhiskey.com. Would love for everyone to follow us on Instagram. We have like 16,000 followers on Instagram. That's also at Beautiful Damned Whiskey. Facebook is B&D Whiskey, which is an and %, of course. And really appreciate everybody listening to all of us talk, of course, and listening to the Beautiful and the Damned story. And, of course, reminder to support, the small craft brands, the craft brands that are trying to bring you something, special that you haven't had before. Really appreciate everyone listening. Thank you.
Jake, you want to stop trying to follow Beautiful and Damned and plug our stuff now?
Yeah.
I beat you to it. So.
Oh, thank you. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts, or any other podcast platform. Watch us on Spotify and YouTube. I think this might be an audio-only episode, but that's okay. Yeah, keep an eye out for this barrel pick because it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think everyone will be super impressed.
Maybe we'll do a launch event at the store.
Yeah.
Dan can't come because he's going to be in Utah,
No,
but
but
the
you can
important
get,
people will be there.
Me and Jake will sign bottles. Yeah, this has been an absolute blast. Thanks for having us at your house, nonetheless.
Tell your wife she's an excellent cook and
Phenomenal
come
cook.
back if she wants to cook for us again. Schedule a stop.
He'll fly out
My
here.
aunt lives 10 minutes away, so.
I love it. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
talented.
it has been so cool. So,
Awesome.
I mean, absolute everything.
Treat. That's a treat.
Yeah, it was such a treat. So,
Awesome. Thanks for coming, guys.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
cool. Cheers.
Hell yeah, boys.